Welcome to the news for the week of 13 December 2020. Naughty Bits, Fireeye, the Russians, SolarWinds, PyMicropsia, Sorrel 20M, and Jason Woods returns on this edition of Security Weekly News.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week, your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for Security Weekly News. Do you know where your organization's crown jewel data is, whose data it is, what it contains, and if it's flagged, tagged, and classified accurately? Defense in Depth requires discovery in depth. At Big ID, they help organizations uncover dark data, classify sensitive and regulated data, meet compliance requirements, and take action for data on-prem, in the cloud, and everywhere in between. Learn more about how Discovery in Depth can change the way enterprise organizations find, classify, and protect sensitive data at securityweekly.com/Big ID.
All right, it's almost the last episode for this year. We'll be doing the news on Thursday this week as we start wrapping up 2020, thankfully. Security Weekly Unlocked was a big success, at least it seemed that way. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you didn't get a chance, they do have the on-demand version now available at securityweekly.com/unlocked. So if you didn't get to watch that, or you want to watch some of the other tracks that you didn't get to see, all available. You can go check it out. It's still free. And then the news. So I didn't lead with what you think I'm going to lead with, but I'm going to lead with this one. So Fireeye had a major announcement this week that they had been hacked. So Fireeye is one of the more high-profile companies in this industry, and of course they're a big target. But the breach news was still kind of unsettling to most everyone since Fireeye is so ubiquitous in the industry. Fireeye said that the attackers apparently had ties to a nation state, got in and stole red team tools, as well as probing for information about government clients. Not much more has been released about the attack. They said they're doing forensics and so on, but they said they are actively investigating it in conjunction with the FBI. CEO Kevin Mandia posted that it was a novel, and it's a quote, a novel combination of techniques were used. Not much really there. So, I mean, that could mean anything. The Washington Post went on and reported that the main suspect is Cozy Bear. So the Washington Post said that. And the case, of course, has drawn the attention of Congress, which is probably a good and bad thing. And Senator Mark Warner said that the U.S. government will need to rethink the kind of cyber assistance the government provides to American companies in key sectors. So this may lead to some sort of government-mandated cyber standards, but my own opinion is that it's going to be difficult for the government to mandate standards that actually keep up with what's going on when they're battling nations. I think it's a complicated topic, but all those are common topics on Security and Compliance Weekly and Security Weekly about standards, laws, and underwriting and all that kind of stuff. And that leads to then the biggest story of the week, which was numerous United States federal agencies were hit in what is being called an attack by the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service. So this is how they described it. The attack apparently originated using SolarWinds. So if you don't, you probably do know SolarWinds, but SolarWinds was one of those things that, like, it used to be a little dinky thing. It was just like basically generated pings and to see, what all was in your network, and it pinged all the addresses and then, replied that there was something at this address. And, today SolarWinds is a big comprehensive package that a lot of people use. So in this attack, Treasury, the Department of the Treasury, the Department of Commerce, and the Department of Homeland Security, have all reported that they were compromised as early as March of this year. So basically what this was is it's a supply chain hack, and apparently about 33,000 SolarWinds customers got compromised that have been reported already, and they were sent compromised software updates. So 33,000 customers were sent compromised software updates. So this led to CISA and a bunch of other warnings coming out this week. The first I saw of this was I got a warning from CISA saying if you have SolarWinds, like, uh-oh. I didn't have it, so I was pretty happy. But it looked like then that the Fireeye story may also have been related to this, and that this may also be Cozy Bear running a very long-term intelligence operation. There was whole piles of stories about this. I read a whole bunch of them, and different people were tying things together in different ways, but almost all of it said it pointed back to Cozy Bear. CISA has warned all government agencies to disable the SolarWinds Orion IT software at this point until there's a better understanding of what went on and what the compromise is. I mean, they know what the compromise is, but could there be other ones? SolarWinds has more than 300,000 customers worldwide, and it's possible that all of them received the compromised updates to the Orion platform. So the attack itself is DLL based, and the DLL basically allows the injection of a backdoor Trojan into the Orion platform that Fireeye has nicknamed Sunburst. The DLL basically sits around in there. It infiltrates other Orion processes, so it just sort of slowly takes over all these other DLLs, and then it waits for some period of time. So they didn't say, is there a trigger for it? Is it just waiting some arbitrary period of time? But it said up to 2 weeks before it actually does anything, and then it proceeds to execute commands. It's a full-blown toolkit. So it can transfer files, it can execute additional processes or download additional things, it can profile the system, it can reboot the machine, disable system services, and on and on and on. The traffic in the attack that's communicating uses the Orion Improvement Program protocol. So it looks like communications for the regular SolarWinds stuff. And then all the collections of data that it is generating are stored in legitimate config files within Orion. Chris Krebs, the former head of CISA, who was fired for saying the election was secure, said that if you are using SolarWinds currently, you should assume you have been compromised. So there it is. Alphabet had their services go down around the world. YouTube, Google Drive, Gmail, pretty much anything with a G in the title. All of them were showing down as of 6:55 a.m. Eastern time on Monday. And basically, this was pretty much everything they had. If it had Google in the name, it was down. So you can check and see if you were down. But I didn't even notice because it was 6:55 in the morning. But the outage lasted only about 45 minutes. There has been little reported on what happened, but Google said it was an internal storage quota issue. When I saw this, I immediately thought it had something to do with this like SolarWinds stuff and whatever, but they said it was an internal storage quota issue. It did not appear to be an infrastructure problem from other reports, but maybe they let that old 64 meg hard drive that they were using to store all the Googles. I don't know, but could have got filled up. A new Windows Trojan has been nicknamed PyMicropsia. I guess that's how you say that. And it would appear that it was developed by Arid Viper, who is an APT that primarily has in the past targeted the Middle East. The information about this was revealed by Palo Alto's Unit 42. And Unit 42 said this was obviously a new tool that was being continually developed, much like all the other tools that we see now as a framework, and they keep adding to it and putting new features and things in it. But that it was indeed developed by Arid Viper. PyMicropsia is capable of uploading, downloading payloads, pretty much anything you want to do. It's like an all-purpose tool. It can do execution, browser. It was, I think, mostly focused on stealing browser credentials, clearing browser histories and profiles so that you wouldn't know that. It can capture screenshots, and it can also do key logging. Other things that they said it could do then was that it could do file listings, delete files, reboot the machine, grab files off of the USB drive, and then my favorite, it can record audio. So apparently it can enable the microphone and record what's going on. It also harvests Outlook OST files, which is where all that stuff is stored on Outlook, and kill or disable Outlook. So it's pretty much, anything you could possibly want in a piece of malware. It is delivered as a Windows executable. So, there's another little bit of fun for everybody's holiday season. The Department of Justice announced that an unnamed defendant has pled guilty to the distributed denial of service attack in October of 2016. That particular attack caused major outages with most major services on the interweb. Their statement said that the defendant conspired with others, it's very vague about who these people are, in September and October of 2016 to leverage the Mirai botnet. So this was this Mirai botnet attack on DEN. And when they did that, of course, the DNS service was crashed, and it caused this massive outage, which is attributed as a denial of service. But it all came from Mirai botnet. The name of the defendant was withheld since the person was a minor at the time of the attack, and the sentencing of this as yet unnamed individual will be held in January 2021. SOPHOS and ReversingLabs released a database of 20 million Windows portable executable files, which contains 10 million malware samples. So that's a pretty nice database. The database is called Sorrel 20M, and it can be used as a training set for analysts. So the primary purpose of this is, of course, to train machine learning in spotting malware out of data sets. So this is a very typical kind of data set you'd see with neural net training or other ML training that I've worked on. The report says this is the first production-scale malware research database publicly released with the purpose. They put a lot of qualifiers on this, with the intent to accelerate research for malware detection via machine learning. They also did at the same time release PyTorch and Light GBM models that were already pre-trained. So if you want to get those, you can go to those websites, PyTorch or GitHub, and get those pre-built models that were already trained on this if you're trying to do research and or implement these kind of things, I guess, in your own tools. Boston Dynamics will be purchased by Hyundai. I have been trying to get Boston Dynamics to give me one of those robot dogs for the studio like forever. I mean, ever since I've been doing shows in here, I've been saying, hey, Boston Dynamics, give me one of those robot dogs. I really want one in the studio, but they've never, ever replied or agreed to be on the show or anything. So now Hyundai is apparently interested in the autonomous dogs and is paying $1.1 billion of U.S. dollars for the Boston-based robotics firm, primarily as a means, according to them, of developing autonomous vehicles and other smart factory tools. So my guess is they're wanting to use the dog logic to, power cars and robots and things in factories. So if you're worried about the metalhead scenario that we talk about a lot from the show Black Mirror, which if you've never, I talk about that one all the time. If you've never seen Metalhead on Black Mirror, this is definitely the story that should send you right there to watch that one, and then you'll be scared of these dogs. But imagine being chased across a dystopian landscape by a slightly used Sonata, and Hyundai, like really. Hyundai, I would really like one of those dogs, please. I promise I won't use it for bad things. Come on. But so when we return, Jason Wood is back. Yay. So stick around.
Increased attacks, skill gaps, talent shortages, expanding attack surfaces. Cybersecurity and IT teams face these real issues every day. CyberArray for Teams is the #1 NIST-aligned DoD 8140 and 8570 compliance certification and skills training platform. CyberArray for Teams makes managing teams easier, guarantees measurable training outcomes, and keeps your team's skills sharp to meet today's biggest security threats. And did you know 96% of the Fortune 500 have employees training on CyberArray? CyberArray for Teams. Now you know. Visit cyberarray.it/solved to solve your team training challenges.
Well, after he climbed a mountain carrying a sacred flower to the temple of Ra's al Ghul, and learning that Ra's al Ghul was actually Liam Neeson all along, which led to sort of this long period of wandering in the wastelands with a real question burning of how did an Irish guy learn all this kung fu stuff, and why didn't he just set up the whole shop in like Kerry or somewhere, because it would be so much easier to fly there than Nepal, But anyway, Jason Wood gave that up and has returned to us. Hi, Jason.
Hey, everybody. So does that mean I'm Batman, or?
Well, you could be Batman. I've never seen you and Batman in the same room together.
That's true. Unfortunately, my bank account doesn't have billions of dollars.
You need to drop your voice down a little. I'm Batman.
Yeah, I'll have to work.
You can practice that, or you get a voice mod or something.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. Voice mod.
Just don't become Robin. You don't want to be Robin. I mean, yeah.
No.
I've read
Robin
about
dies.
that. Yeah. Well, that
Robin
too.
dies if nothing else.
Yeah, but there was that whole thing about him being a boy wonder and all this stuff.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't sound appealing.
Yeah.
Anyhow, you can tell we haven't talked for a little bit.
I can tell.
So this week, I was hunting around for what could I talk about with y'all that would be interesting and potentially useful to you. And I found an article on the Wall Street Journal, which oddly enough wasn't behind a paywall. I have the link to in the show notes. And the title of it is Why Companies Should Stop Scaring Employees About Cybersecurity. And so I got curious. What is this? What's the author trying to propose here? You hear about people complaining, for decades now about FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and using fear against employees is something that is unfortunately pretty commonly used by organizations to try and encourage employees not to click that link or to do whatever, get kind of punitive about it. Anyhow, I wanted to take a look at it. The author is a professor at the Abertay University in Scotland, Dr. Karen Renaud, I guess. And so my hope with this article was that Dr. Renaud had proposed something that might spark some ideas about things we could do in our own organizations. Unfortunately, as I was reading the article, I was a little disappointed because it seemed like half or more was devoted to why using fear is bad. Didn't give much in the way of suggestions on what we could do better. But that may have just been strictly because she's under length restrictions by the Wall Street Journal, which I wouldn't be shocked at all. So I actually hunted down her contact information. I plan on dropping her an email later. And in fact, one of her areas of research is human behavior in regards to cybersecurity. So I assume she has a bit more to say than just this short article. Anyhow, I made me stop and think about the use of fear in security. I remember interviewing somebody once upon a time for a director of security at a company I was working at. For some reason, they decided to look at hiring that position when they didn't really support security at all. And I was trying to get just a security title there and become the first security person. Regardless, he made the comment during the interview that he would scare people into doing things. And this tactic has really never appealed to me. And when I say fear, I'm talking about punitive measures against employees directly for making a mistake, not just explaining, hey, here's what goes on out there and here's the risks and stuff like that, but really getting after embarrassing or firing or somehow sanctioning somebody for making a mistake, because we all make those mistakes. We all make mistakes. I can think of times I've made security mistakes, and I like to think I'm fairly aware of this topic. One of the examples she gave that I thought really sucked was a company that would send out phishing tests, like a lot of our employers will do. But those who click on the link, they get their picture slapped up on the company fridge, with a message there to illustrate that they screwed up, and therefore we can embarrass the employees and we can subject them to ridicule. Hey George, I see you messed up. I can't believe you clicked on that message. And there's no help to improve from this, right? This is just strictly just a punitive thing. How do they recognize what this is? And don't give me the annual training that you go through or semi-annual training where we talk in a PowerPoint presentation about what goes inside of a fish. That's really not that useful. Checks the compliance box, but that's about it. One of the ideas she proposed that I thought maybe had some merit was the idea of creating some kind of, as she called it, a buddy system. What this really means is somebody that you're looking at a document or an email or something or other, and you're like, this looks weird. And you can turn around to somebody nearby and say, hey, Karen, come take a look at this and tell me, is this legit? What's going on here? And there's no punitive for this. That's this person's actual responsibility, a part of their responsibility to answer questions like that. And those folks get extra training. And so you train a smaller group of people and let that push out to the rest of your organization. Now, there's some challenges with that, of course, in current times. We're working remotely for the most part, particularly in IT. So that becomes a little more difficult. I can't turn around and look at my dog and ask for their opinion. But, we could do things like, you're using some kind of chat application for your organization, like Slack or what have you. Make it to where somebody can turn around or can go to a particular room or DM somebody and share a screenshot or something like that and talk through it there. Yeah, there are ways of dealing like this with that if we're being adaptive. She also cited, some of the restrictions around how we share data with coworkers. One of the things she offered up as an idea was encrypted USB hard drives with a fingerprint reader on it, so we don't have to remember a password. And I did some hunting around, and these things are not terribly inexpensive, and they're not as you can get them, but they're not as all over the place as you might have thought. And you have software requirements that you'd have to deal with on the systems potentially, at least on some of the implementations that I saw. Personally, I think there are easier ways to deal with this than just sharing data with a fancy sneaker net, where I walk a USB drive over to somebody, and again, doesn't work in the days of COVID anyway. But we've got cloud storage solutions that require multi-factor authentication. You authenticate once at the beginning of your day, and then you send, you can put data up there and share it amongst yourself. Of course, this does lend to a question about how we let our coworker know that it's there. Do I send them an email with a link in it for them to click to access the file? And maybe we have a problem with mixed messages. But either way, there's alternatives and there's ways we can work around this. I'd like the idea that she's basically proposing, hey, let's step back from just, smashing somebody's fingers every time they make a mistake, because let's face it, we all make mistakes. Every organization puts up defenses and stuff like that, and still has things that go wrong, as we can see in the news. It just happens. One of the themes that she gave that I did agree with, which is provide adequate resources, and that's on us and our companies to provide adequate resources to employees to facilitate some of the things they're trying to do, like maybe sharing some documents with a coworker who is in another country. We've all worked at places, I'm sure, that have a huge list of things that we can't do and absolutely no resources to respond back to that. What can we do? So let's give some folks some tools and things that are reasonable to use, reasonable for the IT folks to admin and support, as well as for the end users. I've seen it done, and I've seen non-technical folks get it just fine. Regardless, Dr. Renaud got me thinking about the problems that we're facing with our employees, and knowing how to respond to different things that are happening. Her point is that fear paralyzes people, and it's got a short shelf life as far as its motivating capability. So let's look for some alternatives. I do believe in the idea of using awareness on how companies can get breached is important. We want people to understand why we're saying, hey, we need to be careful of X and Y. I've said it a number of times here on the show as we've run into stories and said, hey, this is interesting. This is something potentially to share with our employees, our coworkers, to let them know, hey, here's why we're concerned about this. The goal is to help understand security as an issue and not use it as a club to beat somebody up. And try and interpret it to something that's meaningful for your company. Just to help them understand the risks. So it's something for us to think about. I'd encourage you to go ahead and take a read at it. Like I said, it's worth reading through and just using as a starting point to start thinking about your organization. What could I do better as I'm trying to protect my company, as far as providing resources to the employees to help them better get the job done? Where are the points where they have friction and they're hunting for some way of doing something and probably doing it insecurely? How can I help reduce that friction and allow them to do this in a way that doesn't expose us? These are all things that we need to think about and periodically go back and take a look and see, hey, how are we doing? Where do we need to make improvements? And instead of just bashing on people for making mistakes when they're faced with things they're just not prepared for. So go ahead and take a look, see what you think. Let me know if you have any thoughts, because I'm kind of curious as well what some ideas you have about helping employees without terrifying them.
Cool. Yeah, I worked for a financial once, and the person was doing that Wolf of Wall Street thing where they like literally would call people up in front of the room and just bash them and talk about how, they would use all kinds of, I won't use that language here because we're being nice, but I mean, I thought that was one of the most ineffective and stupid things I had ever seen, and a lot of people quit. And the guy was like, this is just my management style. This motivates people. And I was like, well, it doesn't motivate me right before I quit. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not putting up with this crap. I was like, I'm not going to let you call me names because, we told you we'd fix something and it didn't get fixed at the right moment. And the guy's like, I'm going to call out Doug and I'm going to get on my microphone and I'm going to stand up here in front of the bullpen and I'm going to call him a bunch of names and talk about how stupid he is and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? I quit. Have a nice day. I'm not fooling with this. And I just didn't see that working. The buddy system thing is sort of a derivative of like what they used to call extreme programming, which was a method. Yep. And we did use that where you couldn't push something for production consideration until another programmer had signed off on it. We made them sign off. So that kind of encouraged you to look, you're going to sign your name to it and my code. And that's not as effective with email. The only other thing I'd recommended to somebody recently was what I call the word of the day. Somebody asked me about like, how do we send out emails, because now nobody knows if the email came from the president or it came from a faculty member. And I was like, maybe you could just use a word of the day and every email starts with it and it changes every day. And they were like, oh, that's too much overhead. It would never work. And I was like, well, it's just a thought. I mean, that's how the military used to do orders and stuff, was they sent out things that had a word of the day or a code word on it that was changed all the time. But, we need something. I mean, it's a problem, but beating people up isn't going to solve it. And it's going to get good people are going to leave and bad people are going to stay because they can't leave. And it's just going to be a horrible, no thanks.
Yeah.
I'm not working there. You want to call me names, you have to pay me. If you want to pay me to call me names, I'll stand there and let you call me names, but I'm not going to get called names for no reason.
I get paid a lot.
Yes. Well, my rate goes way up. That's what I told the guy at the financial. I was like, I don't mind you yelling at me and calling me, the P word and the C word and the F word and the F and the C word together and other words I don't even know in front of a room full of people because I don't really care that much what you think, but I'm going to double my rates. So anytime you want to yell at me, you have to pay me double. And then he immediately set about telling everybody in the company I cost them their Christmas bonuses and then called me a bunch of other names. And I just said, I'm out. Have a nice day. Enjoy. Be good. All right. Thanks, Jason. Glad to have you back.
Good to be back.
And finally, Cyberpunk 2077, a video game, was released. And, well, sometimes you get more than you bargain for with cutting-edge game releases. Apparently, among all of the many errors and problems that this game encountered when it came out, one of the more dramatic ones, and you're going to love this, was the game will let you customize your genitals on the avatar for some bizarre reason. I've never understood that kind of stuff. I'm like, it's an avatar. Like, what? I mean, why would it matter? Do they get on? I'm not a gamer, so maybe I don't understand these things, but I didn't get this. But anyway, so how this went, as you might guess, people always want everything to be bigger. And as such, a lot of players found that those tight-fitting costumes on the avatars were not capable of containing their now superior assets. And as such, the players were running around the game with their naughty bits flapping in the breeze. And this game had different. You could be male, female. I don't even know what all the options were, but apparently people that got a little oversized were flapping the things in the breeze. It was kind of Deadpool. It was what I was thinking when I was reading this article. I was like, this is a Deadpool kind of thing. But anyway, it definitely worth reading that story. It's not 100%. It's kind of blurred out, but it's not 100% safe for work. So you might want to look at it somewhere else. And that's the news in a time of plague. There is a vaccine being distributed. The science says it is safe, so take it if you get offered it. Don't be a putz. I'm Doug White, and I'm going to go and create a Cyberpunk 2077 character right now.